Welcome, you guys. I am so excited for the very first Talking with Trailblazers here in the Women Empowered in Cannabis CBD group. With us today is Taiya Thompson. I just screwed it up, didn't I? Taiya has been so excited. You know what? I met her over almost a year ago at MJ BizCon at a CannaWire media event, and I was really, really impressed with her products, her business story, and I've been stalking from afar in a non-creepy way, seeing how her business is going, and I just ordered more products because her CBD, she has some magic combinations of CBD and essential oils that she uses for her products. And so I wanted to bring her in today to talk to you guys with her experience and her business story and just cover all of the things in the next half hour. Welcome, Taiya.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to see your face again.
I know, it's so fun. Well, just to get started, can you tell everyone a little bit about the company that you've built and how you got started? Your story
Yeah,
is very, very impressive, and I would love to have you share it with everybody.
thank you. I will. And we only have 30 minutes, right? So condensed version.
Yes, yes.
So again, my name's Taiya Thompson. I'm the founder of Crooked Cactus CBD, and how we got started in the business was, like many of us, it was a passion project, and it involved my son, and his name is Kian. When he was born with Down syndrome, and from like birth to age 3, it was like no problems. Like all the things that I was worried about really didn't come to fruition. And then age 3 to 6, everything changed. He just completely regressed all of his skills. He lost his language. He changed the gait of his walking. He lost even grasping things. He wouldn't feed himself. He no longer traced or written. Uh, just really destructive behaviors, harmful, self-harming behaviors. We just kind of he morphed into a child we didn't even know. And so I knew mother's instinct that something else was going on. But of course, the doctors just want to keep saying it's the Down syndrome, it's the Down syndrome. So it took us years of advocating, and finally we got him the help that he needed, and he was given the additional diagnosis of ADHD, sensory processing disorder, and then also put on the autism spectrum, which is very rare to have a dual diagnosis of Down syndrome and autism. And then also we discovered that he had an epilepsy issue called partial seizure disorder. So at that point, he's age 6.
So
We
much.
finally have answers, but the solutions to these issues from the doctors, of course, was a grandioso pharmaceutical cocktail, which we were not on board with.
Right.
My parents are both nurses, and me and my husband were sitting in the neurologist's office, and they're just listing all these meds that they want to give him, right? And this one's going to fix the seizures, but then we have to give him an antidepressant because he's going to be suicidal. And then we have to give him this for his ADHD, but then we also have to give him this. We all know that pharmaceutical story, right? So we went out searching for something more natural. We didn't look for CBD, but 4 years ago, when we searched for natural solutions to seizures, we thankfully found the now famous Sanjay Gupta video and figured, like, we've tried everything else: diet changes, essential oils, acupuncture, chiropractic. Why not?
Yeah.
So my dad hopped in the car, drove to Colorado, hit the first dispensary
Oh,
he could find, because again, 4 years ago it wasn't the availability that it is today. Came back, we fumbled our way through it. There was no guidance, no transparency, no support. But thankfully, we kind of self-taught and self-administered it. I felt more confident with my parents being nurses.
yeah.
And I remember that first time where we just filled up the zero point 0.1 mil in the syringe and popped it in his mouth, and we're all waiting to find out, like, what's going to happen? Did I just get my kid high? Thankfully, nothing happened, and that kind of put our fears to ease. But it really just took a matter of weeks before he started showing some behavior improvement. And then that a few weeks later, we started seeing a reduction in the seizures. And then, that turned into where at 3 months, I heard him say mom for the very first time
Oh,
in like 3 years. So at that point, I was like, this stuff works, right? I better dive into the research, dive into, just the science of it. And are we using the right brand? Are we giving them the right dose? Is there anything else I could be doing? Because if this
yeah.
is working the way that we're fumbling our way through it, then, what else can we be doing? And again, at that point, there wasn't a lot of transparency. So we spent thousands of dollars testing what was on the market at that time. And we weren't very happy with some of the findings that we got through our own independent testing. And my mom, who, bless her, has always been growing marijuana like my whole life to fund my dad's recreational use. Um, she says, hey, I've been growing this. Why can't I grow that, for Kian? And so we started experimenting and, growing our own products. And, the excess we were giving away. And it just grew into so much demand that 2 years ago we decided, we have to stop selling this higher THC content stuff that we really shouldn't be, marketing, and legitimize now that CBD is, more available and the stigma is diminishing. So we put a brand to the name or a brand to the company, legitimized, went complete CBD, and now 2 years later, we're just loving life and very passionate about helping other families, especially families affected by special needs, and getting the help that they need.
Just your story always gives me chills. I think that's the second or third time I've heard you say it, and every time I'm like, oh, poor little guy.
Yeah.
That's so much for one kid.
Now he's 10 and he's amazing and obviously still challenged, but what it's done for him is really just improved his quality of life so that he would be able to take the therapy and be productive and be able to be in a classroom without being so disruptive that they want to kick him out like they
Yeah.
did when he was sick. So it's really just set him up to be in an environment where he's able to flourish. And that's just been pretty amazing.
It's such an amazing thing, and it's such an amazing impact that being able to have the resources and find and the willingness and ability to research that and find a product and find a combination of CBD that's going to work for him, and then actually turn that into something larger for everybody else too, is very, very impactful. And I think that there's a lot of women that have similar stories when they're starting the business and starting in this industry. And I think that what you've done is tremendous. So first of all, not everyone would take that route. Not everyone would do that. So I, thank you for doing that. And thank you for being here. Some of the things that we're here to talk about today is really looking at, as you've been building your business, what have been some of the key things that you've taken away that you recommend for other people as well. Everyone in this group is at different varying stages of their business. Some people have had their businesses for 10 years. Some people are looking at how to get into the industry. So as we start looking at that, one of the things that when we were chatting earlier, you mentioned the network and relationships. Can you talk a little bit about that as one of the key takeaways that you recommend that people pay attention to when building your business in this industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been told your network determines your net worth. And that truly has been the case as I've been building the CBD business, especially when we got started a whole 2 years ago. Seems like a century in our industry.
Right.
But there was literally no paid advertising that you could really do. Facebook and Instagram accounts are getting shut down daily. There wasn't a lot that we could do that traditional businesses could do. And so really that grassroots effort and those relationships is what helped my business from the beginning. And I would say that you not only need to be in the cannabis industry. Like I see a lot of my friends in the industry going to industry specific events, and that's amazing. But I would suggest that you also get out into your business community and meet other women entrepreneurs, meet other business leaders in the community, meet other health and wellness, like cross promote over industries and really develop that network, because you don't ever know. Before I spent 19 years as a certified financial planner, worked for two major financial institutions, and they always told me you're a handshake away from changing your life. And that continues to apply in this industry. You don't know, that one conversation, that one handshake, that one introduction could just really change the trajectory of your business.
That's so true. I haven't never really looked at it that way, but it's absolutely true. I always think it's funny, and I was thinking about this earlier today. When I first started in the industry and would go to business events, marketing, social media events, people would laugh. Oh, you're in cannabis. Can you get me some products? Oh, you're doing this. Ha ha ha.
That's cute.
I know. Like, I'd get the pat on the head and they'd laugh and be like, oh, that crazy Californian. And now, over the last 2 years, it's, hey, can you come talk to me? It's fascinating how things change, but it's so important to build all those relationships. And I love the idea of just one handshake away. I mean, when I met you last year, who would have thought we'd be doing this now?
Yeah, and I was only at that event because of Adelia through DCN. So she had posted something about her hospitality suite that she did last year. I wasn't able to participate in that, but she recommended the Canna Newswire event, which is then where I met you. And now a year later, we're here on the podcast. So I bet that if you really thought about times in your, personal or business life where things have really shifted, I bet you could probably trace it back to a single moment that involved another connection, something in your somebody in your network.
Absolutely. And a shout out for Adelia. She's awesome. Over there at Event High now.
We have some amazing women in this community.
There's so many amazing women in this community, for sure. So the second thing, one, looking at relationships, two, is you mentioned getting real about your priorities. How do you do that? Do you have a general philosophy that you follow? As entrepreneurs and business owners, we get pulled in 5 million different directions. What takeaway do you have for people there? Like, what advice do you have for people that are trying to balance it all? And
we could do a whole workshop on this.
What? You don't have a 30-second?
As an entrepreneur, and if nobody has read the book E-Myth, I highly recommend that, because it talks about when you're an entrepreneur, you're like hashtag all the things, right? You're wearing all the hats, and especially when you're starting out and you might be a solopreneur. So you might be the CEO, you're also the technician. So you're working in the business, you're working on the business. You're the secretary, the administrative assistant, the HR, the janitor, right? There's a meme floating around that my friends tagged me in that said something like, if you see me talking to myself, don't interrupt me. I'm having a business meeting, So it's super important for me to really have a plan, and I protect my calendar. If it's on my calendar, I get it done. And with raising the kids and the businesses, everything has to kind of have its white space on my calendar. So I would say definitely take a look at what your priorities are and then calendar them. And then if you don't know what your priorities are, I always tell this to people too, look at your calendar and look at your bank account, because I can tell you where your priorities are just by looking at that two things. Like I have friends that'll say, oh, I don't have any time to do this, or I run a local mastermind here as well, and they're like, oh, I don't have time to come to the mastermind. And I'm like, that's exactly why you need to come to the mastermind. Right. But open up your register. That's old school. Open up your online banking and open up your calendar and I'll tell you where your priorities lie, because where you're spending time and where you're spending your money is really what you're finding important. So if you don't like what that is showing you, what that evidence is showing you, then you know where to take action and make changes.
Absolutely. And that's so true. And I think that we all have the big ideas of what we want to do. And then,
Hmm.
like, oh, it's that how do you eat the elephant one bite at a time kind of thing, right? Like planning that all out and putting it together in a way that can get you to where you want to be. Which
Right.
is a million times easier to say, by the way, than to do. Just sit here and talk time philosophies forever. But yeah, an E-Myth is a good book recommendation as well. So one of the things that a lot, I think most, if not all of the women in this group really have is that purpose-driven business. And we were talking before about, one of the important things is staying focused on that and
Hmm.
helping ensure everything is in alignment. Can you speak to that a little bit? And if you've had experiences on when that's in alignment or when it's out of the alignment?
Absolutely. So my son, I never lose sight that that's why we started this company. I never lose sight or waver from my standards in terms of quality, and purity, because I hold him as that's where my bar is. Like if I would give it to Kian, then okay, it's safe for the rest of the world to consume.
Yeah.
And, that's super hard sometimes because, I get approached by all kinds of people. Oh, I can sell you cheaper distillate. I can sell you cheaper this. Or like, have you tried this newest nano particle emulsify, super liquid gold, right? Like, and you have all these shiny objects, like getting thrown at you, and it's very hard. It's very easy, I should say, to get distracted. And so you need to have those guideposts there that are always in the forefront, like to keep you heading in the direction that you intended and on that path. Um, and so, like we've done this with it's also been hard because like I'm a small business, spending tens of thousands of dollars on testing is difficult for a small business, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
But that's something that I've just been unwavering about. So we voluntarily follow the same rules that the regulations are here for the legal adult use on the marijuana side. So if it's an edible, if it's a concentrate, if it's, ingestible, etc., solvent or non-solvent, we follow the same testing packages, here that's required in Nevada at the same levels. Um,
What was the
and
decision
so it's
behind
just
that? Because it is a lot more expense and a lot more work and time, back to the calendar and priorities. What was the logic behind increasing the levels of where you're doing things to pass all of the tests and labs?
again, just with my son in mind and us serving a lot of the special needs community. I mean, there are a lot of companies out there that are not testing for heavy metals, and we all know how amazing this plant is as a bioaccumulator and it being able to pull up those impurities up into the plant and ultimately then it transferring into the end product. So if I am working with a family that has a child with autism and they have spent 2 years doing heavy metal detoxification,
Yeah.
and and then I go give them an oil that is supposed to be helping them and improving their life, but within a matter of weeks or days, because my oil has heavy metals in it, I've unraveled 2 years of work for this family, and that would not that would be really weigh heavily on my conscience. And so those are the kinds of people that I think about when I'm like, oh gosh, we need to come up with another, $4,000 to do testing.
Right, right. Can we
Oh,
talk? Sorry, go ahead.
I was like, oh, like it is a little dig, but that's all I have to do is think about the people that are relying on us for therapeutic reasons, for the medicine that it provides, and I do it. And I just have faith that in the long run, that we're going to stand out for that, and that we will attract the people that are looking for that level of quality, and that the revenue will take care of itself.
Absolutely. And I think it's that leap of faith that's so important. So I know I'm going off topic a little bit, but one thing as a marketer and as a business owner that I find really interesting is how do I word this? When you're going after special needs community, how do you approach that, right? Because everyone is so individual and unique, and yet, you're dealing with parents like yourself who tried for years to try and find something. How do you do that? Like, how does that work? And
So for me personally, and everyone listening, your story is very powerful. So my story in the special needs community carries a lot of weight. Because I've walked in their shoes, I've been in that journey. I know what hell looks like, and I know what can happen on the other side of that. And so for me, as I'm marketing, certainly if you go to our website, it's not like CBD for special needs,
right.
But it's going back to that relationships and going back to the grassroots and really trying to get speaking engagements to where I can just share my story. And I don't have to make like outrageous medical claims, or I don't have to tread on, the whole FDA
right.
guidelines.
That's where I was going to.
I can just be a mom and share my story, and then people, will find me and ask questions because they know that I've experienced what they have gone through or what they're currently going through.
And it's just amazing because especially, to your point about, and I do understand the extra levels of testing, because if you're talking to someone about their children or about their child, it's a whole nother level than if it's, often even just for yourself, right? Like, okay, I'm the one making this choice, but if you're giving it to somebody else who you love dearly, right. It's a whole other level.
My son does not get red dye number 40, right? But I will eat me up some red vines. Like, no problem. But we have found that with kids and pets, people will buy the products for themselves, they'll buy the products for their pets. And when you try to help the parents, because I even tell them, I'm like, this is so stressful what you're going through as a parent of special needs. You need it too, mama. And they're like, oh, no, we're just focusing on the child. So yeah,
I've seen
it. I get that.
I've seen it also with friends for their parents, because that's a common conversation I've had with a lot of friends, and even strangers that find out that this is the industry I'm in, is what can I do for my parents or sick relatives? But it's the same. It's very much the same. Oh no, I don't need it. But can I ask you a question? Because I see the cactuses behind you, and I know, just in case you guys are wondering, Taiya is in Nevada. How did you come up with your logo? I just happen to have some of her products here. I won't always for people, but I just happen to have ordered some. But so you can see the logo. It's a fantastic logo, and it really just stands out, especially in a sea of green and cannabis flowers. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but you guys, I saw this logo and we talked a year ago, and it was easy to find. It was easy to remember. It stood out. I know we're not doing a marketing session, but can you just tell me a little bit about this?
I wish there was like some brilliant answer, but it was somewhat of a fluke. But me believing in energy the way that I do, it was a manifestation, truly, not necessarily a fluke. But what had happened is, here we are, me and my mom, we're creating these products, we're selling it out of Tupperware containers out of her kitchen because we just had excess product that we made. And what we did was we were doing classes where in Nevada, after adult use was passed, the law was you can give an ounce away for free to anybody. So we got this great idea. Well, we'll just charge for classes and we'll give away all of our products. Because at that time, again, our THC content was higher because we were using our own plants. So people were like, this is great, but why can't I just outright buy it from you? And we're like, oh, we're a little uncomfortable with that. So we're trying to figure out a way to legally do that. And we certainly couldn't afford a license here in Nevada. So one day we're at the craft fair, an annual event that's here in Las Vegas. And we go with the kids and everything. It's like a family deal. And we noticed this one particular booth. And again, this is like 2.5 years ago. This one particular booth just had this big crowd around it. And we walk up to it, and it's a guy at the craft fair selling CBD pain cream. And I'm like, wait, what? And I was like, how are you here? Is this even legal?
Right.
And I start just giving him all these questions. Like, where are you getting your material? What are the ingredients in here? And he was selling this like 1 ounce jar for, I want to say $150. And people were just lining up and buying it like crazy, like all these old ladies at the craft fair. And finally, he got so angry at me, I think, because I'm bombarding him with all of these questions about how are you doing this? What is this product? He says, look, lady, I just go where the old people are and it sells like hot pancakes. Right? And I'm like, wait, what? He's like, I have no idea where it comes from. I buy it from a supplier, I slap my label on it, and I sell it to the old people at craft fairs, right? And I'm like, hold up.
Oh my gosh.
That made me so mad that I told my mom, we are figuring this out, because if that is what the future of this industry looks like, hell no.
And it does.
So that day we went home and we were Googling all these different names, like Pure Essence, or, I don't know, just like names that had to do with healthy and wellness and vitality, and none of it was working. It didn't sound right. The URLs were taken. And so my mom says, hey, my favorite scrapbooking company is called Purple Cows. That doesn't have anything to do with scrapbooking. So why do we even have to name our company anything to do with health or the plant or botanicals? And I'm like, yeah, how did they even come up with that name anyway? I'm like, that would be like me just looking up and naming our company the first thing I saw, right? And I look up, and on my mom's shelf in her living room, she has a whole display of Mexican wood carvings, like Oaxaca wood art. And the centerpiece of this is this big, like, wooden cactus with the hummingbirds on it, and hedgehog type things like gathered around it. And it's just a very beautiful piece. And I look up and I'm like, that would be like calling our company Crooked Cactus CBD. And she goes, huh. So that's how we came up with the name, because we both said, oh, we like it. And after we really thought about it, crooked has a couple of different meanings. Life is crooked. We didn't anticipate we would be in that environment where I would need to be searching for cannabis for my special needs son. Life throws you curves. The straight path is very boring, right? But then also we're dealing with cannabis and hemp and CBD, and a few years ago it was a little crooked, right? And then an homage to the cactus. We do live in Las Vegas, Nevada, which we love our desert. And so it really just ended up being a perfect accident.
I love it. I'm not on mute. Okay. Sorry, I muted myself for a minute because my dog was starting to bark. I love that story. That's a great story, and it's a perfect time to wrap up, too. You guys, her contact information is below, so you can find her at crookedcactuscbd.com if you have any questions. She's in the group. As you guys are watching the replay, let us know if you're watching the replay. I want to try and make sure the time's right for everyone to be able to watch. But if you're watching the replay, let us know if you have any questions or comments. Tag us, and we'll get in and answer your questions as they come up. And I really want to thank you, Taiya, for being the very first guest here. We ran into some tech difficulties right before, so luckily thank you for being patient and kind and waiting while I sorted all those technical issues out. We'll be back again. If you guys are interested, also send me a message if you want to be interviewed. if you have a Talking with Trailblazers story you want to share. All right. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Have a great day, you guys.
Thanks for having me. Bye, everyone.